The way that I've come to see it is that there were basically kind of three buckets, three categories of people involved with the insurrection. And they're all part of one story. There is, of course, the ex-president, his inner circle of enablers. Then there's the mob who answered the calls to action. And then there's this middle category that sort of knits the two together. That's the key one in some ways. They're the foot soldiers, the far-right dress-up militias. This includes the Oath Keepers, a group of whom you see here maneuvering up the Capitol steps in an organized formation, as well as the Proud Boys and the Three Percenters. They're the ones who basically took orders from on high and executed them on the ground. They planned, they plotted, they organized in the weeks leading up to and on the day, and then carried out an invasion of the United States Capitol. Now, we've learned bits and pieces about their role on January 6th. The indictment of several Oath Keepers for seditious conspiracy revealed that they spent months training and planning to disrupt the certification of electoral votes, even reportedly stashing weapons in Virginia that they could move to the Capitol on short notice. The founder of the Oath Keepers, Elmer Stewart Rhodes, started talking about those plans months before the 6th.
We have men already stationed outside D.C. as a nuclear option in case they attempt to remove the president illegally. We will step in and stop it. So I've got good men on the ground already. We've did a leaders recon there last week, and we're sorting out what we're going to be staging, and we'll be there. We'll be inside D.C. We'll also be on the outside of D.C. armed, prepared to go in if the president calls us out.
All right, that's him saying it himself, right? We know that another far-right group, known as the Proud Boys, also plotted and organized, but in a less public matter. Their leader, Enrique Tarrio, allegedly ordered his members to remain incognito when they arrived in Washington. And again, allegedly, he held a secret meeting with the head of Oath Keeper, Stewart Rhodes, on January 5th, the day before the insurrection, in an underground parking garage. So here you see two different of these groups coming together to plan. But now a fuller picture is coming into focus of how these militias, dress-up gangs, whatever you want to call them, played a key role in executing the will of Donald Trump and Trump Jr. and all of their cronies. The Guardian reports the January 6th committee has obtained new private evidence leading them to believe the Capitol attack included a coordinated assault perpetrated by the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys. And they came to that conclusion this week after obtaining evidence of the coordination in testimony and non-public video. You see, like so many of the insurrectionists on January 6th, the militia groups like to record their crimes on video. The committee spent 7 hours interviewing a documentary filmmaker who captured many of the Proud Boys' actions on January 5th and 6th, and they examined some of his footage in, quote, excruciating detail. Sources said the new information could play a large role in establishing whether Trump oversaw criminal conspiracy as part of his efforts to overturn the election. And most crucially for the panel, it could form part of the evidence to connect the militia groups to the organizers of the rally that immediately preceded the attack, who in turn are slowly being linked to the Trump White House. Hugo Lowell reported that piece for The Guardian, and he joins me now. Hugo, let me start on the text messages we have. I'm going to go to your reporting in The Guardian next, which is excellent. You know, to me, what jumps out about the Trump text messages is it gets rid of any plausible account that this was based on things they actually empirically suspected about the nature of the vote count, and was instead what it looked like, pure will to power, an attempt to stay in power no matter what.
Right, and that's exactly how Judge Carter phrased it in the Eastman ruling recently. It was a coup in search of a legal theory. And I think this kind of goes to the heart of everything around Trump's effort to overturn the election, right? The one thing that stood out to me about the text message that Don Jr. sent to Meadows was that it was coming even before the election had been finalized and we knew that Joe Biden was the winner. And it shows that this plan, the scheme to have Pence interject in the certification process on January 6th and to somehow throw this to the House in a contingent election under the 25th Amendment was not something that was just thought up in the days before the joint session of Congress on, even on January 2nd, when Eastman wrote his infamous memo about how to stage a coup, he effectively put it out in writing, right? But the ideas were being formulated months and weeks before it was ultimately, Trump tried to implement it by pressuring Pence.
Let's talk about your reporting, which is really eye-opening to me. So I think these groups are crucial because, we have a fair amount of evidence that they were really the instigators. They were the sort of avant-garde here, right? They were the front people to sort of break in. They were the ones doing like actual plotting in advance of the day and on the day. And the question is, what do we know about how they coordinated with each other and who else they were coordinating with? What does your reporting suggest about what the committee is learning and the answer to those two questions?
Yeah, so the committee has been amassing a whole bunch of evidence in recent weeks about the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys and the other militia groups that were around on January 6th. And the determination that they are coming to is that at least part of the Capitol attack was a coordinated assault by these militia groups who were in contact with each other in the days leading up to it, both on the phone, both in person. And I think this is where the investigation is heading next, right? You referenced this in your opening. This underground parking lot rendezvous that happened on January 5, just a stone's throw from the Capitol, where you had Stuart Rhodes and Enrique Tarrio, the head of the Proud Boys group in D.C., meeting to discuss presumably what they were going to do the next day. Now, the Justice Department has said in an indictment that they understand the word Capitol was said in that meeting. The Select Committee is not quite so sure. Which is causing them to look at that evidence with some skepticism. But the fact of the matter is that, all of these militia groups were meeting and they had communications with each other and they had communications with some of the rally organizers who, as I said in the reporting, spoke to the Trump White House.
Talk to me about the documentary. One of the through lines in this is probably the most documented crime in history, I think. I mean, this has been a through line of Ryan Riley's reporting and other of just individuals who've been caught up. But there were documentary filmmakers, apparently everywhere there were streamers. What can you tell us about that aspect?
Yeah, it's this really bizarre element of this whole Jan 6 Capitol attack was that Roger Stone had a film crew with him. Enrique Tarrio, the head of the Proud Boys, had a film crew with him. And this is the documentary filmmaker who spoke to the committee on Wednesday for around 7 hours. I think he got in around 9 a.m. He was done around just before 4 p.m. And they went through all of the footage in really minute detail. They looked at two things in particular: the parking garage footage, where they were trying to discern what was being said, what was being organized in that meeting between the head of the militia groups, and they were also looking at this 17-minute video that has not been released publicly yet. That basically documents the crowd moving from the ellipse to breaking the police line at the base of the Capitol, and they have also been looking at footage of Ali Alexander and other people connected to the Stop the Steal movement that was so instrumental on Jan 6, walking around the Capitol, towards the Capitol. It's essentially trying to track their movements and figure out who was speaking to who, who was communicating where, who was going, and doing what, as they kind of piece together this puzzle of the militia groups and how they connect to the Capitol attack.
We should note there's some significant developments in terms of who's cooperating. Ali Alexander, the individual we were just showing pictures of, is cooperating. The Justice Department's January 6th inquiry, that according to New York Times reporting at least, that just crossed a few minutes ago. There's also a leader of the Proud Boys who pled guilty to conspiracy and assault charges in the January 6th Capitol breach, and as part of his plea agreement, he's agreed to cooperate with the government's ongoing investigation. It does seem like and that's over on the Department of Justice side, right? That's not even the committee side. So it does seem like there are some very significant developments on that part of the investigation as well. Hugo Lowell, who's been doing fantastic reporting on the committee throughout. Thank you very much.